Welcome back. We're so glad to have you join us again as we embark on another journey to uncover the truth behind some of the most widely believed myths and misconceptions. Today, we're diving deep into the world of fact versus fiction, and we'll be debunking some of the most popular and persistent myths out there, stories you've probably heard countless times, but may not have questioned until now. We live in a world where so-called common knowledge spreads quickly, through conversations with friends, viral social media posts, and even headlines in the news. These ideas become so familiar that we rarely stop to ask if they're actually true. But just because something is repeated often doesn't make it a fact. Assumptions and half-truths can easily lead us down a path of misinformation, shaping the way we see the world and make decisions. In this series, we're on a mission to set the record straight. Each episode, we'll tackle 10 widely believed myths, breaking down what's true, what's exaggerated, and what's just plain false. We'll dig into the evidence, explore the science behind the stories, and reveal the real facts that often get lost in the noise. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge so you can spot misinformation and think more critically. Think of this as a workshop for your brain, a place where we dismantle old, faulty ideas and rebuild them with solid, well-researched facts. It's all about learning, questioning, and growing together. So are you ready to challenge what you think you know? Let's open our minds, question the familiar, and get started on busting some myths together. Let's dive in. There's a myth that's been passed around for generations. The Great Wall of China is the only man-made object visible from space. It's a story that's been repeated in textbooks, documentaries, and even by teachers and tour guides. The idea is so captivating that it's become almost common knowledge, a factoid people love to share. But how much truth is there to this claim? It's a romantic idea, conjuring images of astronauts gazing down and spotting this ancient marvel snaking across the landscape. But as appealing as it sounds, it's simply not true. The reality is a bit more complicated, and a lot more interesting. The wall is undeniably long, stretching over 13,000 miles, but it's only about 30 feet wide. To put that in perspective, trying to spot the Great Wall from low Earth orbit is like trying to see a single human hair laid out across a football field from the stands. The wall's narrow width and the materials it's made from make it blend in with the natural terrain. Astronauts who have actually been to space, including Chris Hadfield and Neil Armstrong, have confirmed that you can't see the wall with the naked eye from orbit. In fact, many astronauts have said that even with perfect weather and lighting, the wall is nearly impossible to distinguish without the help of powerful cameras or telescopes. The wall's color and texture are so similar to the surrounding hills and valleys that it almost disappears into the landscape when viewed from above. It's not a bold line cutting through the earth, but rather a subtle feature that's easily lost in the vastness of China's terrain. So what can you actually see from space? At night, the most visible man-made features are city lights. The glowing clusters of cities and towns stand out like constellations against the darkness, revealing the patterns of human civilization. During the day, astronauts report that large airports, massive dams like the Three Gorges, and vast agricultural grids are much easier to spot. These structures are larger, have more contrast with their surroundings, and often feature geometric shapes that catch the eye from above. The Great Wall is still an astonishing feat of engineering, winding over mountains and valleys for thousands of miles. Its construction required incredible ingenuity, labor, and determination. It doesn't need a cosmic myth to be one of the world's most impressive landmarks. The real significance of the wall lies in its rich history and the countless stories of the people who built, guarded, and lived alongside it. For centuries, it has stood as a symbol of China's strength, resilience, and cultural heritage. So while the myth is officially busted, the wall isn't visible from space with the naked eye, it remains a landmark for humanity, drawing millions of visitors and inspiring awe in all who see it up close. Sometimes the truth is just as awe-inspiring as the legend. The wall's real story is one of human ambition, perseverance, and creativity. Let's move on to the next myth. Verdict: busted. Next up, let's tackle one of the most persistent and widely believed misconceptions about the human mind: the idea that we only use 10% of our brains. You've probably heard this claim in movies, books, or even from friends, and it's easy to see why it's so appealing. Imagine unlocking hidden mental powers just by tapping into the unused 90%. But is there any truth to this idea? It's a seductive myth, but neuroscience tells a very different story. Decades of research and technological advances have allowed scientists to peer inside the living brain, revealing a far more complex and active organ than the myth suggests. Modern brain scans like fMRI and PET show that over the course of a typical day, virtually every region of our brain is active at some point, even when we're resting or asleep. In fact, even simple tasks like reading, walking, or daydreaming require the cooperation of multiple brain areas. There are no large, dormant sections of the brain just waiting to be switched on. Every part has a role, whether it's processing sensory information, controlling movement, or helping us remember and plan. The brain is an incredibly energy-hungry organ, consuming about 20% of our body's oxygen and calories, even though it makes up only about 2% of our total weight. This high energy demand is a clue to just how much work our brains are doing all the time. From an evolutionary perspective, it wouldn't make sense for our bodies to devote so many resources to a mostly useless organ. Natural selection favors efficiency, and our brains have evolved to be as effective as possible. The real potential for growth isn't about activating unused brain regions, but about strengthening the connections between neurons and learning new skills. Our brains are already fully active, but they're also adaptable, capable of rewiring and improving throughout our lives. So the 10% myth is thoroughly busted. There's simply no scientific evidence to support it, and plenty to prove the opposite. The truth is, we use all of our brain, just not every part at the same time. Different regions light up for different tasks, working together in a beautifully coordinated way. The reality is far more fascinating than the fiction. Our brains are dynamic, powerful, and always working to help us navigate the world, solve problems, and create new ideas. Now that we've set the record straight, let's move on to the next myth. Let's talk about lightning. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. In reality, lightning often strikes the same spot repeatedly, especially tall, conductive objects like skyscrapers and towers. The Empire State Building gets hit by lightning over 20 times a year. Christ the Redeemer in Rio, also a frequent target. Lightning seeks the path of least resistance, and tall structures provide just that. The idiom may live on, but in the real world, lightning follows physics, not folklore. So the myth is busted. Lightning can and does strike the same place more than once. Don't trust the saying, trust the science. Let's keep going. Next myth. Goldfish have a 3-second memory? Not even close. Goldfish can remember things for months, not seconds. Experiments show they can be trained to associate sounds with feeding and remember it for a long time. Some goldfish have even been taught to navigate mazes and recognize their owners. The myth likely comes from observing bored fish in tiny bowls, but science tells a different story. Goldfish are much smarter than we give them credit for. They can learn, remember, and adapt, just like many other animals. So, the forgetful fish myth is busted. Next time you see a goldfish, remember, there's a thinking creature in that tank. Let's move on. Next myth. Blind as a bat, but bats aren't blind at all. All bat species can see. Some, like fruit bats, have excellent vision, especially in low light. Most bats also use echolocation, emitting high-frequency sounds and listening for echoes to navigate and hunt in the dark. Echolocation is an enhancement, not a compensation for blindness. Bats combine sight and sound to master the night sky. The myth is busted. Bats see just fine and have a superpower on top. Don't fear the night. Respect the science. Let's keep busting myths. Onward. Next up. The myth you swallow 8 spiders a year in your sleep. This fact was invented as a hoax to show how easily misinformation spreads. Spiders avoid humans. They're sensitive to vibrations and see us as threats, not cozy caves. The odds of a spider crawling into your mouth are astronomically low. Even asleep, you'd likely wake up or brush it away if something touched your face. There's no scientific evidence for this myth, just internet folklore. So, sleep easy. Your mouth isn't a spider magnet. The myth is completely busted. Let's move on. Next myth. Does shaving make hair grow back thicker, darker, or faster? Nope. Shaving cuts hair at the surface, leaving a blunt tip that feels stubbly and looks darker, but it's just an illusion. Hair growth, thickness, and color are determined by genetics and hormones, not razors. Scientific studies dating back to the 1920s confirm shaving doesn't change hair's fundamental properties. The new hair just hasn't been exposed to sun or wear, so it may look different at first. Shaving is a surface treatment. It doesn't affect the follicle below, so shave with confidence. Your razor isn't changing your hair. The myth is busted. Let's keep going. Next up, more myth busting ahead. Cracking your knuckles causes arthritis? Not true. The popping sound comes from gas bubbles collapsing in your joint fluid, not bones grinding. Studies, including a decades-long self-experiment, show no link between knuckle cracking and arthritis. Larger studies confirm there's no increased risk. The sound might annoy others, but it's harmless to your joints. So crack away if you like, just maybe not during meetings. The myth is busted. Science wins again. Let's move on. Next myth. Do bulls get angry at the color red? Actually, bulls are red-green colorblind. To them, a matador's red cape looks dull or gray. Bulls charge at movement, not color. Tests show bulls react to waving flags of any color, not just red. The red cape is for tradition, and to mask blood from the audience, not to provoke the bull. The myth is busted. It's motion, not color, that matters. Sometimes the truth is less dramatic, but more interesting. Let's keep busting myths. On to the final one. Almost there. Next up. Did Vikings wear horned helmets? Not at all. The horned helmet image comes from 19th century opera costumes, not history. Archaeologists have found no horned helmets from the Viking Age, just practical rounded iron caps. Horns would be a liability in battle, not an advantage. The real Vikings were skilled warriors and sailors, but their helmets were all about function, not flair. The iconic horned look is pure pop culture, not fact. The myth is totally busted. Sometimes the real story is more interesting than the legend. Let's wrap up. Final thoughts coming up. Stay tuned. And there you have it, 10 popular myths, officially busted. We've seen how easily fiction becomes fact, but the real world is even more fascinating. The goal isn't just trivia, it's about curiosity and critical thinking. Always ask, is that really true? Where's the evidence? Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and let us know what myths you want us to tackle next. Stay curious, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep busting those myths. See you soon.